All right, we're going to continue looking at completing the square. We've leveled up. We're going to look at some level 2 examples. So the level 2 example, we're going to complete the square on x squared plus 7x plus 4. Now, no matter how high we go in terms of levels, completing the square always boils down to exactly the same thing. We have to match the perfect square pattern that we talked about in the previous video. To do that, we always start with the x squared. So we have x squared, 1x squared. The pattern requires 1x squared. We match. Yay! Now, all we need to do is associate the coefficient of x with the 2b, and we will match. And we can do that. So we'll come over here to the side, and we'll say we're going to define 2 times b to be equal to the coefficient we have for x is a positive 7. So positive 7. So now, looking at the pattern, 2b times x is what we need. 2b times x is what we have because 7 is the same as 2 times b. So we match. 2 out of 3. And now we get to b squared. And b squared has to be, b squared is defined by b. So we have to come over here and figure out what b is. So we divide both sides by 2. And b is equal to 7/2. Now, little side note here. I know a lot of students don't like working with fractions, and I don't care. But if you're not working with a calculator, many times the fractions are going to be quicker. For example, we know that we need b squared. Well, b squared then is 7/2 squared, which is 7/2 times itself. But I know how to take 7 times 7, that's 49, and I know how to take 2 times 2, that's a 4. Right? And these middle 2 steps I just wrote out so you could read them. But I could actually do that in my head. I know that b squared is just going to be 7 times 7 and 2 times 2, because you're just taking the top times top, bottom times bottom. So working with the fraction is very quick. By comparison, if you were to write b, which is 7/2, and you punch that into your calculator and you get 3.5, well, okay, so I said in your calculator, but I guess what I mean is if you think about 7/2 as being 3.5, and you have to square that by hand, like on some mean teacher's exam where he doesn't let you have a calculator, you would have to take 3.5 times itself. And that's a lot of work. To do this 2-digit multiplication. Again, what you'll end up with is kind of a big number with ugly decimals in it. This is much quicker. But you do you, right? At any rate, we need our constant term to be b squared, which looks like 49/4. So how are we going to get that? Well, last video I showed you that we can always add 0. And so when the numbers start getting a little ugly, like with fractions or decimals, we go to that add 0 idea. So we're going to add 0. We're going to pick the way 0 looks. We're going to add 49/4 and subtract 49/4. And we still have this plus 4 over here. So just to be clear now, this is just adding a 0. It changes the way things look. It doesn't change its value. Everything that was in the original is still there. We still have our x squared. We still have the 7x. And we still have the plus 4. So things look different. Things are not different. All right. As we did before, we will drop these parentheses. And we will focus on the first 3 terms. Because if we've done our work correctly, regardless of how ugly it looks, this should now be a perfect square. So comparing it to the pattern, 1x squared and 1x squared. 2b times x, and since 7 is equal to 2 times b, we have 2b times x. And then we need b squared, plus positive, plus b squared. B squared is 49/4, and we have 49/4. So we match on the constant term. That means these first 3 terms are a perfect square. And we know that a perfect square will always factor into x plus b squared. Okay, so I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to do it. I don't have to use the AC method or factoring by grouping or guess and check. I know this is a perfect square. It will definitely guaranteed factor into x plus b. What was b? Well, let's come back over here. B was equal to 7/2. So x plus b squared. And now we still have these constant terms out here that we're going to have to deal with. Okay. And this plus 4, and we're going to have to combine it with this fraction. So let's think about this as a fraction. To combine fractions, we're going to have to use a common denominator. So we have 49/4. So minus 49/4. And the common denominator will be a 4. So we'll convert this to 16/4, getting the common denominator. So now we take negative 49 plus 16, and that will still all be over 4. So let's see, 49, 33. Somebody double check my math. So let's see, yeah, that looks right. Okay, here it is. There's the completed square form. Is it ugly? Yes. Well, it has fractions in it at least. But look, compare it to what we did in the first video. The procedure was exactly the same. We start off by trying to match the pattern. The 1x squareds match. The middle term matches because we make a definition. In that definition, we then solve for b. We square the b. And we make sure that number is there because we drop it in using this plus 0 technique. We then focus on the first three terms. Those are a perfect square. The last two terms, we just add them together. It's exact, the numbers were uglier, but it's exactly the same procedure. Let's do another example. So let's work with x squared minus 9x minus, I don't know, 12. Sure. I'm just making this up. Okay. You should stop the video, pause it right now, and see if you can work it out using the previous example as a guide. And then come back and work through it with me. Okay, so I'm hoping you did that. So now we're going to work through it. As always, we match the pattern, the perfect square pattern. So we start with the x squareds. We have 1x squared. That matches. The middle terms will match as long as we set up the correct relationship. So we're going to come over here and say that 2 times b is equal to, now remember, we need the entire coefficient, and that includes the sign. Right? The coefficient is not positive 9, it's negative 9. So 2 times b is negative 9. So now we match on the linear terms because of our definition. And now we have to figure out b squared. To get b squared, we first solve for b. We divide both sides by 2. We want b squared. And if we square this, negative number becomes positive. 9 times 9 is 81. 2 times 2 is 4. There's our b squared. Okay, so let's start off by writing those two down. Now we're going to add 0. What does our 0 look like? It looks like our b squared, 81/4, minus itself. And we still have the minus 12 at the end. There's the minus 12. There's the negative 9x. The x squared. And so now, oh, right, and then playing with all my colored pens. Right, that's just equal to 0, so it doesn't change its value. All right, so we know that we can regroup and think about just the first 3 terms. And these first 3 terms match our pattern exactly. Here's 1x squared. Here's 2 times b times x, because 2 times b is the same as negative 9. And here's b squared, because b is equal to negative 9/2. B squared is equal to positive 81/4. So this matches the pattern exactly, right? This is our perfect square. And since it's a perfect square, we know that perfect square will factor into x plus capital B squared. We don't have to work for it. We already know what it's going to be. It's going to be x plus b. What was our b value? Our b value was -9/2. So x plus a -9/2 is the same as x minus 9/2 squared. And then we have to deal with this stuff. Well, like in the previous example, we're going to have to combine them, which means we need common denominator. So thinking of the 12 as 12 over 1, the common denominator is 4. So we convert to a common denominator. Now we combine. So negative, denominator will be 4. So 81 and 48, that's 129. There's our completed square form. I hope that's what you got when you worked it out on your own. If you didn't get that, I hope that you see where you made an error and recognize how to fix it. Or, let's be honest, if I made an error, I hope you spotted that and you'll mention it in the comments somewhere on the forums, and I will fix it, I hope. All right. The next video will be level 3.